Hi and welcome back to the channel. Our topic today is another hemodynamic disorder, that is embolism. Embolism is the process of partial or complete obstruction of some part of cardiovascular system by any mass carried in circulation. So embolism is the process of partial or complete obstruction of some part of cardiovascular system by any mass carried in circulation. Okay, now we know what is embolism. Now let's move on to discuss more in detail about it. Embolism can be classified based on different criteria. It can be classified depending upon the matter. I told you embolism is obstruction caused by any matter in circulation. So depending upon what kind of matter it is classified into solid. For example, thromboembolism, embolism caused by thrombus. We discussed what is thrombus in our last class. Okay, just go through it. Or embolism can be of liquid. For example, fat embolism, amniotic fluid embolism, etc. Or embolism can be caused by even gases. For example, air embolism. Another criteria on which the embolism is classified is according to whether it is infected or not. When it is not infected and is sterile, it is called bland, and when it is infected, it is called septic embolism. Based on the flow of blood, there are two special types of embolism. Paradoxical embolism. Paradoxical embolism refers to an embolus which is carried from the venous side of the circulation to the arterial side, or in reverse, that is from arterial side of the circulation to the venous side. So any embolism which crosses from venous side to arterial side or vice versa is called paradoxical embolism. The crossing can be through arteriovenous communication such as patent foramen ovale, septal defect of the heart, etc. Another special type is a retrograde embolus. You must have guessed from the name. Yes, you are right. Retrograde embolus is one which travels against the flow of blood. This usually happens when there is increased pressure in body cavities, like as in coughing, straining, etc. Now that we have seen the classification, let's move on to see a few important types of embolism in detail. The most important type of embolism is obviously thromboembolism. Thromboembolism is, as we have seen earlier, a detached thrombus or part of thrombus blocking the blood vessel. What is thrombus? How it is formed? We have discussed that in very detailed manner in our last few videos. Yes. Now this thromboembolism can occur in the arterial or venous side, and it is called arterial or systemic thromboembolism and venous thromboembolism respectively. The common sites of arterial thromboembolism are heart or arteries. But the effect of the arterial thromboembolism depends upon the adequacy of collateral circulation. If the artery blocked is the only blood supply to that particular organ, then obviously it will cause infarction, ischemic necrosis, and it may be followed by gangrene. But if there is adequate collateral circulation, that is supply by other branches or other arteries also, then the effects may not be that severe. Coming to venous embolism, the main sites or veins of legs or lower extremities. And the most significant effect of venous thromboembolism is obstruction of pulmonary arterial circulation, leading to a condition called pulmonary embolism, which is, by the way, the next major type of embolism we are going to discuss. Pulmonary thromboembolism is a fatal form of venous thromboembolism where occlusion of pulmonary arterial tree occurs. This mostly occurs in bedridden patients, late pregnancy or following delivery, and the source of the thrombi is mostly the large veins of lower limbs. And the pathogenesis of the formation of such a thrombi, as we saw in our previous class, is mostly venous stasis or some hypercoagulability condition. The consequences of pulmonary thromboembolism is wide and varied. It can result in sudden death, that too without chest pain and dyspnea. Sudden death without any discomfort like chest pain or dyspnea. But if the death is a bit delayed, then the symptoms resemble that of myocardial infarction, that is heart attack. Another consequence is acute cor pulmonale. This occurs when numerous small emboli obstruct most of the pulmonary circulation, leading to back pressure and acute right heart failure. Another consequence can be pulmonary infarction. This occurs when there is obstruction of a relatively small sized pulmonary arterial branches. And the clinical features include chest pain due to fibrinous pleuritis, hemoptysis, that is, hemoptysis is blood in sputum, that is hemoptysis, and dyspnea. Dyspnea is shortness of breath or difficulty in breathing. Another consequence is pulmonary hemorrhage, and this occurs when terminal branches of pulmonary arterial tree is blocked. And here also the clinical features include hemoptysis and dyspnea. When on the one hand there are life-threatening consequences, on the other hand resolution can also occur in some cases. And this resolution is obviously due to fibrinolytic activity. Sometimes the thrombi can get organized also, and in that case it can lead to pulmonary hypertension, chronic cor pulmonale, and pulmonary arteriosclerosis. Coming to the next type of embolism to be discussed, that is systemic embolism. Here the source is invariably heart, mostly the left ventricle, and the effect is infarction at the site of the lodgement. It causes infarction of the organ which is supplied by the artery which is affected. Okay, now that we have discussed the different types of thromboembolism, let's move on to discuss entirely different type of embolism produced by a different substance, that is fat embolism. Here in fat embolism, the obstruction of arterioles and capillaries are by fat globules. The major cause or etiology for fat embolism is trauma to bones. As you know, the major part of adult bone marrow is formed of fat, and in trauma to bone or fracture, this fat can enter the circulation and cause fat embolism. Fat embolism can also be caused by fat which is released into circulation during laceration or trauma of soft tissue containing fat, that is adipose tissue also. It can also be caused by other non-traumatic causes like extensive burns, diabetes mellitus, etc. also. Coming to the pathogenesis, there are four theories to explain this. One is the straightforward mechanical theory. Here, as I explained earlier, due to trauma to the bones or adipose tissue, the fluid fat is released into circulation and it can cause embolism. Next theory is emulsion instability theory, and this explains the cause of fat embolism in non-traumatic cases like as I told you, diabetes mellitus, extensive burns, etc. Here it is said that the fat emboli are formed by aggregation of plasma lipids, that is chylomicrons and fatty acids, due to disturbances in natural emulsification of fat. The said conditions disturb the natural emulsification of fat, and this can lead to aggregation of plasma lipids and cause embolism. Coming to the third theory, that is intravascular coagulation theory. This theory states that in stress, the release of some factor activates disseminated intravascular coagulation, that is DIC, and also aggregation of fat emboli. And coming to the last theory, that is toxic injury theory. This is a bit different. Here, according to this theory, the small blood vessels of the lungs are chemically injured by high plasma levels of fatty acid. Okay. Here, the small blood vessels of the lungs are directly chemically injured by high plasma levels of free fatty acid, resulting in increased vascular permeability and consequent pulmonary edema. Coming to consequences of fat embolism, the effect of fat embolism depends upon the size and quantity of fat globules, and invariably it is in the venous side, and so it causes pulmonary fat embolism, that is blockage of pulmonary arterial tree. But sometimes this can move from the venous side to the systemic side also through patent foramen ovale or arteriovenous shunts. And in that case, it can get lodged in the capillaries of organs like brain, kidney, skin, etc. Coming to the next major type of embolism, that is gas embolism. Here, the embolism or blockage is produced by bubbles, that is gas bubbles within the circulation. There are two main forms of gas embolism, that is air embolism and decompression sickness. First, discussing air embolism, this occurs when air is introduced into the venous or arterial circulation. How can that happen? Venous air embolism or introduction of air into the venous circulation happens in operations of head and neck or trauma to head and neck, especially when major veins of neck like jugular vein is opened. It can also happen in obstetrical operations and trauma when air enters into the circulation through opened up uterine venous sinuses and endometrial veins. It can also occur in something as simple as intravenous infusion of blood and fluid, especially when positive pressure is employed. It can also occur during angiography. What is angiography? I suppose you all know. It is studying the blood vessels in X-ray after injecting a contrast dye via a catheter. It's mostly done to identify blocks in coronary arteries. This procedure can also lead to air embolism. The effects of air embolism depends upon four things. Number one, the amount of air introduced. Usually 100 to 150 ml of air entering the circulation is fatal. The effects also depend upon the rapidity of entry of the air and position of the patient. In pulmonary embolism, we saw that bedridden or supine patient is more vulnerable. But here in air embolism, upright position is problematic because common physics, air bubbles always come up or ascend in fluid. The same way in upright position, the air bubbles ascend into the superior vena cava, causing problems. And finally, the effect is also dependent upon the general condition of the patient, whether the patient is healthy or already has some complications, just like our COVID-19. COVID-19 also causes serious trouble in already ill patients. Coming to arterial air embolism, the most common causes of arterial air embolism include cardiothoracic surgery and trauma. Venous air embolism mostly occurs in head and neck surgery, obstetric surgery. Here, arterial air embolism mostly occurs in cardiothoracic surgery and trauma or penetrating wounds which open the lung, that is a rupture of lung in some penetrating wounds. It can also occur as paradoxical air embolism. Paradoxical, I have already explained. Embolism which moves from venous side to arterial side or arterial side to venous side. And also in arteriography. Arteriography is nothing but a form of angiography. Coming to the effects, it depends upon the site of blockage. If the cutaneous vessels are blocked, it leads to a condition called marble skin. It can cause blockage of retinal vessels, When the vessels of the tongue are blocked, it can cause pallor of the tongue. Compared to such smaller effects, it can also cause sudden death when the site of blockage is some important artery like coronary or cerebral artery. Coming to the second major type of gas embolism, that is decompression sickness. This is a specialized form of gas embolism known by various names such as Kaizen's disease, diver's palsy, aeroembolism. Decompression sickness is produced when the individual decompresses suddenly. That is, when the individual ascends suddenly from high pressure area to normal pressure area or from normal pressure area to low pressure area. This mostly occurs in divers. Divers or deep sea divers dive to deeper levels of sea where there is very high atmospheric pressure, and in this high pressure state more amount of gases, especially nitrogen, is dissolved in blood and also in tissues like adipose tissue. And when that person ascends to normal atmospheric pressure suddenly, what happens is, due to oversaturation, these bubbles, that is gas bubbles, are released from solution and form minute bubbles. These minute bubbles can coalesce to form large bubbles and cause embolism or blockage. The same thing can happen when the particular person ascends from normal atmospheric pressure to low atmospheric pressure also. Pressure is low in higher altitudes, and when a person ascends to higher altitudes suddenly, the same thing can happen. The effects of decompression sickness is also dependent upon certain factors like depth or altitude reached, duration of exposure to that altered pressure, rate of ascent or descent, and of course general condition of the individual. And I told you gases are not just dissolved in blood but also fat, so obviously obese persons are at more risk. Clinical effects of decompression sickness can be acute or chronic. In acute form, the characteristic effects are bends, chokes, and cerebral effects. The bends, because the patient doubles up or bends over in his bed due to acute pain in joints, ligaments, and tendons. The chokes, because due to accumulation of bubbles in lungs, acute respiratory distress occurs. And cerebral effects like vertigo, coma, and sometimes this can end up in death also. In chronic form, this can cause avascular necrosis of bone, neurological symptoms like paresthesia, paraplegia, etc. And all these occur due to ischemic necrosis caused by blockage of that particular artery. Coming to the next type of embolism, that is amniotic fluid embolism. This amniotic fluid embolism is a most serious, unpredictable, and unpreventable cause of maternal mortality. This occurs during the labor or in the immediate postpartum period. Here what happens, the contents of the amniotic fluid may enter the uterine veins and reach the right side of the heart. The clinical syndrome of amniotic fluid embolism is characterized by sudden respiratory distress and dyspnea, deep cyanosis, that is getting bluish skin, that is called cyanosis, cardiovascular shock, convulsions, coma, and unexpected death. The cause of death is mostly mechanical blockage of pulmonary circulation. Apart from these major types of embolism, there are also some minor types like atheroembolism, tumor embolism, etc. We will not go into that further. We will wind up this topic here. In our next class, we will discuss another hemodynamic disorder, that is infarction. So for more video classes, keep the channel subscribed. As usual, I have provided the PDF notes in the description, and also you can contact me for any further guidance. If you need Malayalam or Tamil dubbed versions of these classes, you can let me know that in the comment section. Okay, until we meet in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.